This is Dan Dicks here, reporting for Press for Truth. The Trudeau government is halting funds for the unmarked grave search after millions of dollars have been spent and no bodies have been found. Here is the official statement on behalf of the National Advisory Committee on Residential Schools, Missing Children, and Unmarked Burials, where they say they are extremely disappointed to learn that the Government of Canada has decided to discontinue funding to support their work to help Indigenous communities in their efforts to identify, locate, and commemorate missing children, and is urging the federal government to reconsider. Of course, I've been reporting on this very issue ever since the very beginning. As you see in this one, no bodies have been found after $8 million was spent searching for bodies. Mass grave hoax confirmed. Or in this one, unmarked graves investigation comes up empty. No criminal activity has been found. Surprise, surprise. They've gone from children to anomalies to disappeared, now to unmarked burial features. And of course, this has already been debunked by many academics, this whole mass grave idea, as the biggest fake news story in all of Canada. It was way back in June of 2021 that I started covering this with this one, the truth about the residential school mass graves. It wasn't genocide. It amplifies the war on Christianity. So now here we are, guys. This whole scam is being exposed. Millions in federal funds to recover suspected Indian children's graves in BC went elsewhere, according to this report from the Toronto Sun. So the grift is officially over. And rightly so, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to cover this and much, much more in this video. But really quickly, just before we do, guys, I'd ask that you check me out here at pressfortruth.ca/donate if you appreciate my efforts to bring you this information. Here you can do a one-time donation with PayPal. You can do Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. You could sign up here or here for a monthly reoccurring contribution. You could send an e-transfer to Dan at pressfortruth.ca. Thank you to everybody who does contribute in that way. You can also send stuff to my P.O. box, guys. Links for all of this is located right there in the description below. Thank you so much to anybody who takes 1 minute today to contribute to my efforts to bring you this information here at Press for Truth. All right, guys, check this out. What was supposed to be millions of dollars spent to recover suspected children's graves at the Indian residential school in BC instead went to publicists and consultants, according to the financial records that have been obtained by BlackRock's reporter. The records were obtained under the Access to Information Act, which the Department of the Crown Indigenous Relations attempted to hide, the report said. The department only released the records by order of Information Commissioner Carolyn Maynard, who ordered this to be released. The records show that these First Nations received more than $12 million in funding after announcing the discovery of 215 children's graves in Kamloops, BC in 2021. That claim was later revised to 200 potential burials, and no human remains have been recovered to date, despite requests from families to return the bodies, said an internal memo. And by the way, guys, when this was suggested that they change it to potential burials, you had the person who suggested that facing accusations of racism over that. BC Conservative MLA backs this lawyer in the residential school row with the Law Society. British Columbia's opposition attorney general critic is questioning the apparent mistreatment of a lawyer after he asked for the rewording of the Law Society's training material about residential schools. Dallas Brody of the BC Conservative said on social media that she'll reach out to the BC Attorney General Nikki Sharma of the Law Society of British Columbia in the coming days about this situation facing lawyer James Heller. Brody's post on Saturday shared a link to an article about Heller, who unsuccessfully pushed last year for the Society's training material to say that there were potentially burial sites at a former residential school, instead of using more definitive language. And guess what, guys? For that, well, Heller is now suing the Society over what he calls false and defamatory imputations of racism. They claim that he says the Society republished, while Brody says in her post that there are 0 confirmed child burial sites at the schools. So literally trying to suggest that it's racist to say that there's only, potential for some of these graves to be found. And taking it even further than that, guys, as I documented in this video, Where Are the Bodies? There is a bill to criminalize denialism that is actually on the table and could pass into law. This is Bill C-413. Bill C-14, private member bill, introduced in the Canadian House of Commons to address residential school denialism. This MP in Winnipeg tabled the bill aiming to amend the criminal code to create an offense of willfully promoting hatred against Indigenous peoples by condoning, denying, downplaying, or justifying the residential school systems in Canada through statements communicated other than in private conversations. So they claim it's an offense and you are willfully promoting hatred if you downplay this thing. And you are willfully promoting hatred if you deny that any of this actually happened, or if you even dare question that any of this happened, when literally not a single body has been located to this date. And the Trudeau government is now halting funding towards this unmarked grave search because millions and millions of dollars have been spent and not a single body has been found. The Canadian federal government will be halting funding to this committee tasked with searching for unmarked burials near the former residential schools after 0 graves were discovered and millions of taxpayers' dollars have been spent. In this statement, they say they're extremely disappointed with the government deciding to discontinue their funding. They're urging the government to, to reconsider this. And the reality of the situation is that since the NAC was struck, not one body has been located on the lands associated with former government-funded and mandated residential schools, many of which were run by Catholic and Anglican churches in Canada, which, by the way, many of them were burned to the ground and vandalized because of this, unmarked graves lie. There was a total of $7.9 million that was granted for field work, which resulted in no human remains being found. There was these funds that were budgeted in 2022 to locate burials linked under a former residential school, and it's already set to expire with some $216 million having been spent. In 2021 and 2022, the mainstream media ran with these inflammatory and dubious claims that hundreds of children were buried and discarded by Catholic priests and nuns who ran some of the schools. And as a result of this, as I said, many of these churches were burned or vandalized. Even though many of this has already been debunked by academics and international, news outlets around the world as being the biggest fake news in all of Canada, still the lie is perpetuated here in Canada. Like, they're trying to keep this going and going and going. But now the federal government has just cut funding, so we'll see where this goes from here. It was this nation who was more or less the reason for these large international outcries of 2021 that claimed it found 215 unmarked graves. The claims remain, however, were not backed by physical evidence, but were rather disturbances in the soil picked up by ground-penetrating radar. And as I said time and time again, the lady who first discovered this with the ground-penetrating radar said, nothing is definitive here until we actually have excavations that can prove our findings. And again, to date, that has not been done. They changed the claim of 215 to 200 potential burials. And remember, people were facing, charges of racism for just suggesting that. And then new bills are introduced to try to charge you with denialism over this, even though not a single body has been found. Again, absolutely crazy. Trudeau back in June gave false statements about these unmarked graves that were discovered. The Pope even came and visited and said that this was a massive genocide, again, perpetuating this mass grave hoax, which, hasn't been proven to date. Canadian Indigenous residential schools, while run by both Catholic Church and other Christian churches, were mandated to be set up by the local government. And while there indeed was some Catholics who committed serious abuse against Native children, this unproved mass graves narrative has led to a widespread anti-Catholic sentiment since 2021. While some children did die at the once mandatory boarding schools, evidence has revealed that many of the children tragically passed because of unsanitary conditions due to the federal government, not the Catholic Church, failing to properly fund the system. And then, back in October of 2024, there was a retired Manitoba judge who said Canadians are being deliberately deceived by their government here, after blasting the Trudeau government for actively pursuing a policy that blames the Catholic Church for the unfounded deaths and secret burials of Indigenous children. So this has been going on for far too long. I'm very happy to see that the grift that has seen millions and millions of dollars be completely squandered is now finally coming to an end, because like I've been saying for years, not a single body has been found, and not a single body will be found, because this whole thing is one of the biggest fake news stories that Canadians have ever been faced with. So I'm going to continue to expose this for what it is, guys. You can catch up on all my videos on this. Just do a search on my website for residential schools or mass graves or, truth and reconciliation or any of these types of words, and you'll find my probably couple dozen videos that I've done on this. But it's important to expose this for what it is, guys. Once again, if you do appreciate my efforts to do that, don't forget to check me out here at pressfortruth.ca/donate. Again, you can check the top link in the description below. And that's all for today, guys. I want to thank you so much for tuning in once again. Please don't forget to share this video with your friends and family who you think need to see it the most. Click that thumbs up button. And stay tuned, guys. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dicks reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.